Hello, hello. Good morning, everyone. Hope everyone is doing well. We have a lot of material to cover today, but I see somebody still signing in, so I'm just going to give them one more minute to do that, and then we will begin. Okay, like I was saying, we have a lot of material to cover in the hour, so I'd like to begin. This is the basic AutoTag training webinar. Today is Wednesday, April 11th, 2018. My name is Eric Johnson, and I'm a technical support engineer here at Windward Studios. I've been here for a few months now. Maybe you have interacted with me through help desk tickets. You may have noticed that when you logged into the GoToMeeting webinar, you have a toolbar. The arrow that you see on the screen is pointing to the raise your hand icon. If any time during the webinar you have a question or experiencing any technical difficulties, please feel free to click that button to ask your question or notify me of anything that's wrong. The only thing is the prompts that I have for the question and answers are on my other screen, so I may not see your questions immediately. Usually I wait until the QA session at the end to answer the questions, but I will try to look at these two screens occasionally just to see if anyone has raised any question. Again, this is a basic introduction to AutoTag. We assume that you haven't used AutoTag. Maybe you've installed it, but you probably haven't built any templates. You don't know too much about the interface or how to add tags to your documents. So we'll go over the very basic, the fundamental things to do with AutoTag. Next week, there's an intermediate training webinar scheduled where we'll cover more advanced features. But for today, we'll be discussing the basic introduction. The machine I'm working on is Windows 10 operating system, which is 64-bit, and I'm also using Office 64-bit. It's okay to use 32 or 64-bit. We recommend using 64-bit as this allows you to utilize all the memory on your machine when building a template and gathering the data. Because sometimes you're pulling in a lot of data and it requires a lot of memory. I think 32-bit only allows you 2 gigs of memory. With 64-bit, you can utilize all the memory you have on your hardware. And the version of AutoTag I'm using is 15.2.250.0. This version was just released last Friday, and you can find it on our Windward Software Downloads webpage. Okay, I want to give you a high-level overview of what we'll be discussing today. We'll take a look at what's within the AutoTag and AutoTag Manager tabs. We'll create a template using the ForEach and Alt tags to create a couple of lists. These 2 tags being the most popular tags that you'll use. We'll go over input parameters, or what we consider variables, which are used to filter before you generate output. We'll go over a couple of data source wizards, specifically SQL and XML. We'll cover how to generate a report and how to get some help. Okay, we're first going to look at what's in the AutoTag Manager tab. You're not going to access this tab that often. It just kind of gets your environment set up. We'll go over the data source button, which is what you'll use to connect to your data source. We'll discuss the find and replace tool. We'll talk about how to update your license key. So if you're using a temporary key and want to update it to your permanent key, we'll show you where that can be done. We'll discuss the About button and where to get samples and other tutorials after this webinar. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and open up a blank document right here and show you the AutoTag Manager tab. The document is opening up on my other screen, so I'm just going to drag it over here, expand it for you guys. Okay, so when you install AutoTag, there will be two tabs added to the Word ribbon, the AutoTag and the AutoTag Manager tab. So we're going to start this by taking a look at the AutoTag Manager tab. Within this tab, there's a few sections, data, tools, options, getting started guide. Over here in the data section is your data sources button. This button connects you to your data, whether you're using JSON, XML, SQL, or OData. These are the 4 data types that we support. To the right of it is your load and create pods. If we have time at the end of this webinar, we'll go into discuss loading and creating pods. If you would like to get some more information on these pods, you can always go to our wiki to obtain some more information. To the right of the pods is this generate code button. Now this is handy for the developer types. It shows you how to generate from the template that you're working on right here, the code from our Windward engine. So if you're using the .NET, Java, or RESTful engines, it shows you the code and how to reference the template and generate the output. Okay. I'd like to next discuss in this tool section this find and replace button. This is something that sometimes is forgotten about. This is a very handy tool. It's an easy way to update all your tags in your template. So I'm going to open it up. It came up over here on my other screen. Let me drag it over. All right, so this is a handy way if you need to update tags within your template. Say you created a data source, and when you do, you assign it a nickname, and that nickname was good when you created a template, but as you're going further in the development, you realize that the nickname could be a little more descriptive, and you'd like to go and change it. Well, you can do that through this find and replace tool. What you would just have to do is type in what you're looking for, the name of the nickname that you like to replace it with what, give it the new nickname, and then you can even come down here and select specific tags that you want to have this nickname changed in. Say you want to have it changed in the chart tags, the if, the else tags, the out tags. You can select specific ones, or you can select them all. And you can also define which properties you like to replace, as we're discussing nickname here. So it's a very handy tool when you like to update tags which have already been set up in your template. Let me close this. Okay, next, within this options section, I'd like to point out this about button. I'm going to go ahead and click it. So this about button defines your auto tag. It tells you the information about your auto tag. So for me, my auto tag version that I'm using, as I mentioned earlier, is 15.2.250.0. And here you can see that I'm using Word 64-bit. It also lets you know what version this license is good for. This license that I'm using is good for version 16. 16 isn't out yet. It will be coming out. But right now, 15 is the latest major version. So if you were to upgrade from one major version to the next, this will let you know what version that key is valid up till. Also let you know how many licenses I have. I'm using a super license key. So I have 50 systems I'm able to run this license on. You may not have this many, but it lets you know the license, how many it could be run, how many licenses, how many systems this license can be run on. Also let you know when the license expires. For me, it'll expire July 30th, 2018. And the other thing I want to point out is this IP address. So whenever you click the About button, whoever is using the specific license, this specific license at the time I click the About button, you can see all the IP addresses listed out. So this lets you know all the people who are using this license at the time I click the About button. Okay. Like to show you now the license button. And this is where I mentioned that if you were performing a major update, say from 15 to 16 or 14 to 15 or something like that, or if you have a temporary license key and you need to update to your permanent key, this is where you would do it. You would copy it from the email that you received it in, and then you would come in here and Control-V to paste it. Once your license is in here, click OK. And the last part that I like to discuss within this AutoTag Manager tab is this Getting Started guide. Okay, so today, watching the webinar, I'd say is a great first step to learning AutoTag. Second step I would recommend is going to our Windward tutor. This gives you step-by-step instructions on how to do things. So I'm going to go ahead and click it. So here you can get instructions on AutoTag basics, connecting to your data in AutoTag, AutoTag tag tutorials, bunch of different topics. I'm going to go ahead and choose AutoTag basics. Once you open up the topics, you have a couple of subtopics. For AutoTag basics, there's the inserting a tab, ForEach tab, and accessing sample templates. I'm going to go ahead and select inserting a tag. And once it opens, here you'll find objectives on inserting a tag, procedures on how to actually insert a tag. And we also give you a GIF, which will give you a video demonstration on how to perform each step. So a great second step in your learning of Windward. My next recommendation would be looking at the samples that we provide you. So I'm going to go up here and click on this samples button. And this will open up the Getting Started guide. Here, you have some step-by-step instructions, some tutorials. We give you some sample templates, industry-based. But what I want to point out is down here in this additional section. Here, we have tutorials for SQL, XML. We will be including tutorials, tag tutorials for JSON, but we aren't fully there just yet. For this webinar today, we're going to focus on the SQL data source. I'm going to go ahead and click that. And for any tag that you can utilize in AutoTag, we have a sample for you. So I'm going to go ahead and just show you the if tag, for example. So I'm going to go ahead and click this. And here you can learn more about the tag. Here's step-by-step procedures, instructions on how to use the if tag, further instructions on the else tag. One of the cool things about this is that it's connected to our Northwind SQL server database. So you can actually generate output from these SQL samples. That Northwind SQL server database is open to the public. So this is a great next step for reference of using specific tags. We give you examples of each, and you can actually output it to see what the results would be. Okay, that's everything for the AutoTag Manager tab. Let's go back to the slides for a minute. So we just discussed the AutoTag Manager tab. We're now going to go over the AutoTag tab. Here's where you'll actually create the template. In this webinar today, we'll create a very easy template using some ForEach and out tags. Basically, I'll show you how to select a tag, how to insert using the wizards for SQL and XPath, how to create an input parameter, how to generate output, and how to pull your data in using the data bin. Now, for an overview of what a ForEach tag is, a ForEach tag does three things. One, it fetches a set of data or the specific data that you want to utilize within your data source. Two, it can repeat that data through an iterative loop. For example, say if you're trying to create a list. And third, it repeats the contents between the beginning and ending for each tag. The ending for each tag just tells AutoTag when we stop repeating content with each iteration of the loop. This for each tag is something that you will probably use regularly. Now, the most common tag is the out tag. The out tag is basically short for output. So when you're trying to display data from your data source within your template, tags are simply placeholders for your data. So when you're ready to display a number, an image, or text, this is where you'll use the out tag. The ForEach tag doesn't display information. It just gathers data that you want to use, loops through the data, and repeats the contents between the tags. This out tag actually displays the data that you want your users to see. All right, I'm going to go back to Word for a minute, and we'll start building a template. I'll open up a blank document. All right, so the first thing to do when creating a template is to connect to your data. So I'm going to go up here to the AutoTag Manager tab, and I'll go over here to the Data Sources button, and I'm going to go ahead and click on it. And this opens up the connection editor. Here, within this editor, you have your active connections and your recent inactive connections. I've been working on some templates earlier, so I already have some things set up. But as you can see right now, my active connection is empty. So I'm going to go ahead and create a new connection for this template. So I'm going to go over here and click New. When you click New, you have a couple of different options of connection types. You can connect to a Salesforce app or a SharePoint. You can connect with your JSON data, OData, XML, XPath, also SQL. So here you can see that I have a lot of SQL options. And this is because I have a lot of drivers installed on my system to assist other customers with their templates. If you can install different drivers depending on the SQL environment that you're using. So if you go to our wiki, it can provide you with step-by-step instructions on installing the different SQL drivers and also where to obtain the proper drivers. For today, I'm going to connect to our Northwind SQL server database. It's a public database that I mentioned a little bit ago. And as it's an SQL server database, I'm going to go ahead and choose this last option right here. Now, the first thing to do after selecting the type of connection is to give your connection a nickname. As I'm going to be connecting to the Northwind SQL database, go ahead and make it simple. Call it Northwind SQL. Now, when you enter nicknames, there can be no spaces in the nickname. It has to be one straight string, one straight character string with no characters. I'm sorry. There can be no spaces in the nicknames. So just please keep that in mind. So once I've established a nickname, next I'm going to go ahead and choose the server that I want to connect to. For the Northwind database, it's located in the mssql.windward.net server. Okay, once I have this, instead of selecting the database right now, I'm going to move over here to this credentials section. Now I'm going to enter in the username and password for the database that I want access to. This is open to the public, and the username is demo. Password is also demo. Okay. Once you enter in the credentials, you can specify the type of tables, the display tables. You can hover over the different options to get an indication of the differences between these. We're going to go ahead and use user today. Over here on the right is a read in metadata checkbox. This is checked by default. There's only a few times that you don't want to pull in all of the metadata from your database schema, but this is a great option to keep checked. Okay, now that I have entered the credentials, I need to select the database that I want to utilize. So what I can do is I can go in and click this drop down, and I'm going to choose the Northwind database. And I have all these listed out for me based upon the server I'm connecting to and also the credentials. So AutoTag knows that this is a server I can access. And so for this example, we're going to go ahead and connect to the Northwind database. So this is one way you can set up the connection editor. This is a manual way. Your DBA may provide you with a connection string. If they do, you could come into this, check this box, and then enter in the connection string right here. So another way to connect. I'm going to go ahead and do this manually using the information I have set up. There's also this root directory down here. This is for using relative paths within your tags. So if you're referencing sub-templates or images that are on a shared network, you can provide the root directory for AutoTag to use to locate those sub-templates or images. So now that I have the connection set up as I want to, let's go ahead and test this to see if I'm able to connect. I'm going to click this test button. And down here you can see data source test succeeded. All right, so it looks like I'm able to connect successfully to this database. So now that I know that it works, I'm going to go ahead and click add. And when I do that, you'll notice now that this Northwind SQL connection that I just created is now listed under the active section. So now I'm connected to the Northwind database. all I need to do now, that's all I needed to do. So I'm going to go ahead and close this. So when you connect to a database, AutoTag automatically will show you the database schema over here on the right and the data bin. Here are all the tables and the views that I can connect to from this Northwind SQL server. And these are the tables and views that I can connect to based upon the username and password that I set up, that I entered in the connection editor. For the example today, we're going to create a table based on this categories section, this categories table. The categories table contains a few different columns. We got the category ID, category name, description, and picture. So let's go ahead and get started. So I'm going to go over here to the Home tab. I'm sorry, the Insert tab. I'm going to add a table to this template. So I'm going to go ahead and click this table button and make this a 3x2 table. All right, now I need to use AutoTag to start tagging up my document. So I mentioned before we'll be using the categories table. Let's decide what we want to display. So for this table, let's go ahead and let's use the category name. Let's use the description and the picture. I like to display this information from the categories table in this table. All right, now that I have my header row, we need to supply the data from the categories table into this table. So I'm going to select, put my cursor right here under the category name, and go back. I'm going to go over to the AutoTag tab, and I'm going to click tags. So these are all the tags that you can use when setting up your templates. And if you hover over any one of them, it'll give you a short description. For the start of this example, we're going to insert a ForEach tag. So I'm going to go ahead and click that. And that tag was added where the cursor was. So wherever the cursor lies or is blinking is where the tag will be added. So I'm going to go ahead and highlight this ForEach tag that I just added. And I want to point out a few things to you. This is ForEach Tag properties section. So this right here will always let you know what tag you have selected. This is a ForEach tag, so up here you can see the ForEach Tag properties. There's a couple of things within this ForEach Tag properties that I want to point out. First thing is this variable. Right now it's var name 1. So by default, AutoTag provides you with a variable name for your tags. As I said, this is var name 1. This is how AutoTag refers to the tag that you have created. Make it a little easier, I'm going to go ahead and change the name to be more descriptive. So whenever AutoTag is going to be referring to the ForEach tag, it is going to be using this var categories. So when I press enter, it's going to ask me, do I want to update all the tags? I only have one, so I'm just going to say no. Okay, another thing up here is the nickname field. So the variable name is what AutoTag uses to describe the variable. The nickname field is more a readable name for the tag. So say you've been working on a template for a long time, and you know all the tags, know how it works, but you have someone else who's come on board and is helping you. Well, instead of just coming through and seeing for each tag, you can make this a little more descriptive for your developers by giving it a nickname. So this is going to be the categories for each tag. So let's go ahead and give it the category's name. And when I press enter, you'll notice that the for each tag's name has changed. Earlier it was for each, and now it says category. So it helps you to better understand, gives you a way to better describe the tags, just to make it easier for you to read them in your template. So now let's go ahead and select the data that we want to use. So there's a shortcut up here in the tags property called the data tree. So I'm going to go ahead and open this. And here you will have all the tables that you have access to, all the views, and all the stored procedures. So earlier when we were at the data bin, we can only see the tables and the views we have access to. We couldn't see the stored procedures. But if you do have stored procedures, you're able to access them through this data tree. So for this example, the data we want to return is the categories data from this categories table. So I'm going to go ahead and select it. All right, you can hover over this to see the data that you're bringing back from within the table. Or you could also click on this preview button to ensure what's happening. So you can see from the preview that we're selecting the correct data that we want to be returning. Here we have the category ID, the category name, the description, and the picture. So this is all the information that we want to be receiving within this ForEach loop. One thing about this preview, I use it quite often to make sure I'm selecting the correct data that I want to see before generating the output. So through this webinar today, you may see me using the preview often, but it is just a way to help me understand that I am going to display the proper information. So the ForEach tag is getting the data that we want to utilize. Now we need to display that data. So we'll use an alt tag. So I'm going to go ahead and put my cursor right here to the right of the categories tag. Go up here to the tags button, and this time I'm going to go ahead and select an alt tag. Now I need to select what data needs to be displayed in this alt tag. So I'm going to go ahead and select it. Go back up here to the tag properties and click the data tree button. And this time, the data tree is looking a little different. By default, AutoTag knows that I'm referencing a ForEach tag. So you'll see the var category names and all the data within that ForEach tag. The options to select your tables and views and stored procedures are collapsed by default, as you don't want to pull your data directly from these tables. If you did, you would just repeat the first record in the row however many times as it loops through the data. So you want to reference this for each tag variables when setting up the alt tag. And so since we're on category name, I'm going to go ahead and select it. All right, I'm going to preview this to see what I'm returning. And yes, okay, here we go. We're getting the category name from the categories table, and first option is beverages. So yes, exactly what I want to see. All right, let's close this. Next, let's add an alt tag for the description. Go back to the tags button, alt tag, select it. Let's associate it with some data. So I'm going to go back up to this tag data tree button. And this time we're on the description field. So I'm going to go and select that description column. So now this alt tag is going to be returning description data. We have one more column for the picture. Place my cursor right there. Go back to the tags, select the alt tag. Once it's in the table, go in and select it. Go up here to the data tree and choose picture. All right, we're almost done. Last thing we need to do is add the end for each. The end for each, again, tells AutoTag when to stop looping through the content between the beginning and end tags. So whenever you add a table, you'll want to put the end for each tag outside of the table. It's logical to think that you should put it right after the last alt tag in the table, but in actuality, so you don't create a blank row at the end of your list, you'll want to put that end for each tag outside the table. So I'm going to go ahead and add an end for each tag right here outside the table. Go up here to the tags, choose end for each. And again, this end for each tag just tells AutoTag when to stop looping through the data, when to stop displaying the category name, description, and picture for each record. All right, so there we go. We have a table set up, we have tags in it, and we have those tags associated with data. Looking pretty good. Well, one of the cool things about AutoTag is that we support about 90% of Word's functionality. We don't support word art, so we don't suggest using that in your templates. You could use import tags instead to bring in your images and logos. But since we are using Word, we can style the table any way we want to. So I'm going to go ahead and select this table, go up here to the table tools, choose design. And let's say I want to give this, let's keep the header row here. Let's keep it having banded rows. I don't need the first row, so I'm going to uncheck that. And let's go ahead and spruce this up a little. So I'm going to go ahead and give this table a color. Let's make it green. All right, there we go. From a plain table to now a table that's styled. This is how easy it is to style your tables through Word. Again, we use about 90% of Word's functionality. So now let's go ahead and output this to see how it looks. I'm going to go back to the AutoTag tab, and here's the output button. You could either click this button right here, or there's a drop down. I'm going to go ahead and expand on this drop down, and here are the different output options. You can output the docx, HTML, PDF, can output to a printer or RTF, PPTX for PowerPoint, and XLSX for Excel. These are grayed out in this output for Word, as these options do not cross-platform. So you would have to use Excel if you wanted to output to XLSX, or you'd have to use PowerPoint if you wanted to output to PPTX. And if you were in Excel, same thing. You wouldn't be able to output to docx. You would just be able to output to Excel. The default is docx. So I'm going to go ahead and output this to docx. It's going to ask me to save the report. Yes. I'm going to save it to my desktop. All right, let's go ahead and compare the output to the template. I'm just going to split the screen for a moment. I'm going to go ahead and close this data bin so you can see a little easier. Okay, well, over here on the left is the template with the tags, and over here on the right is our output with the same style we had set up. You may notice right here that this picture column isn't actually showing pictures. We're just showing the raw data from the database. Let me show you how to correct this. So I'm going to close the output for a moment, go back to my template. I'm going to select this picture alt tag. And again, you can tell I'm selecting the alt tag based upon the properties right here. And for this picture, let's give it a type so that it knows what it needs to display. We can set it up to display a base 64 template, bitmap, date, hex template, number, PDF, different options here. But for a picture, we're going to go ahead and choose bitmap. Okay, now when I do that, you'll notice that the tag changed to a nice little icon, which can show the size of the image that we'll display. We can also come up here again within the alt tag properties, and there's a size field. We can choose different sizes we can set these images to. Bitmap, specified height, specified width, fill width. So I'm going to go ahead and choose specified width right now. So as I said before outputting, let's go ahead and preview just to make sure we're getting the right data that we'd want. So with this tag selected, come up here and click preview. All right, yes, we are getting the data we want. As you can see here, here's a picture. Great. Let's go ahead and output this again to make sure that our picture is displaying not just the preview, but in the generated output as well. It's going to ask me to save, yes. And this time I just click the button. So it's going to remember the last output you went with. So I went with docx. So when I say yes to save, we'll have another docx. So I'm going to go ahead and split the screen again. All right, so as you can see, we do have our pictures over here on our right now. All right, got that first table created. Next thing I like to point out is that when you connect to your data source, you don't need to connect to just one. You can connect to multiple data sources as well as different data types, XML or SQL, all within one template. So I'm going to go ahead and add some text down here. XML table to view. All right. And now let's go ahead and add a second data source to this template. So I'm going to go up here, AutoTag Manager, and click that tab. And back here to the data sources, you may notice now that there's a green circle. This just means that I'm connected to a data source. I'm going to go ahead and open the connection editor. You can see under the active that I'm connected to the Northwind SQL database, which we have been working on for the first table. But now let's go ahead and create a new connection for XML. I'm going to go over here and select New. Down here under Web, we give you two different options for XML, XPath 1.0 and XPath 2.0. I'm going to select XPath 2.0 as it gives you the latest and greatest functions compared to XPath 1.0. First thing, after I select it, I want to give it a nickname. So let's go ahead and call this one Northwind XML. And just remember, no spaces in the nickname. So you can either type in the URL that you want to connect to, or you can browse to a file by clicking on this folder icon. I'm going to go ahead and connect to one of our sample databases, the Northwind XML database. So I just click that folder icon to browse to it. So when you install AutoTag, you get in this documents folder, this AutoTag folder. In this folder, you will have all your data and sample templates that we supply you when you install AutoTag. I'm going to go ahead and select the templates. I'll come down here and choose all files. We have tons of sample templates that we give you when you install AutoTag. There's probably a little over 200 samples installed. We're cleaning these up all the time. So you may see some appear, you may see some disappear, but we're always working to improve and enhance what we offer you. You also have some Excel templates, some Podified or Pod templates, PowerPoint templates, and so forth. So I'm going to go back to XML files only. I'm going to go back to the AutoTag tab, go into the data folder. And as I mentioned, we're going to be using this Northwind data XML. So I'm going to go ahead and select that. Okay, once selected, I can add a protocol if I wanted to. I could add a schema. I can test whether or not I can connect to this database. And here my message saying, yes, the test was successful. So this is all I want to do for this connection. So I tested it. It does work. So I'm going to go ahead and add it. Okay, now you can see I have two data sources in this active section. I have this Northwind SQL connection that I had earlier, and now I have my new Northwind XML that I just set up. So you can have two databases active, two connections active at the same time. I've heard up to 9 XML files being referenced in a template at once. You can have as many as you need. So now that I'm connected, I'm going to close that. And so when the data bin opens, it's a little different now. We still have our tables and our views from the Northwind connection, Northwind SQL database, but now we have our parent and child nodes from our Northwind XML database. So there's a cool thing that AutoTag can do for you to help set up a template to make it easier for you. Let's say in this example, we're going to use the employees table. So let's say you need all the employee nodes from this employee's parent node. So what you can do is you can actually select this and drag it over to your template. Once you release it, you get this window that comes up to let you know that it will set up a table for you with all of these columns. You may not need all these. You can deselect all. For this example, I'm going to go ahead and create a table which will list the first name and the employee's last name. I want the first name to come first before the last name, so you can change the order of how these will be displayed in your table. Also like to see the hire date and the country displayed. So we're just selecting which columns you want to insert into the table with check marks here. I can click on OK. And as you can see, AutoTag has set up the table for me. Add a couple of spaces in here to have this display a little better. So let's make sure that we're actually pulling the data that we want to see. So let me go ahead and select this employees ForEach tag and go up here to the AutoTag and preview it. So this preview is a lot different than the SQL preview that we saw before, because this is dealing with XML nodes as opposed to table columns that are formatted in a specific way. But here you can still see, as I collapse these records, here's one record for Nancy. Here's another record for Andrew, another record for Janet. So here we are pulling back multiple records within this ForEach tag. Okay, good. That's what we wanted. Let's go ahead and select this first name tag and preview it also to make sure that it's returning the information that we want. Alt tag, first name, yes, it's returning Nancy. Good. And just like before, we can even style this table. Since it's already been set up, let's go ahead and go to design. Let's still keep a headed row, banded row. Let's remove the first column. This time, let's go ahead and change it to blue. All right, now that we have the table set up and looking the way we want, let's go ahead and output this to see what the style will look like. Go ahead and click output, yes to save. All right, I'm gonna split the screen. Let's close the data bin, and up here we still have our SQL table, but down here, lower portion, is our new table based on XML data. Now, one thing you may notice is the hire date. It's in not the format that is normally displayed as a date. This isn't as readable as most dates are. This is the data that's coming through. So let's go ahead and change this to be a little more easier to read. So let's close this, come back here. So in order to format that hire date, I'm going to go ahead and select it. So up here in the alt tag properties is this format data button. So I'm going to go ahead and click that. So this is, as you can see, it's a style similar to what you may have seen in Excel. Let's go ahead and select the date, and let's give it a long date like this. All right. Once you've chosen how you want it to be displayed, go ahead and apply it and close. All right, let's preview this just to make sure it's in the format we like. And here we go, March 1st, 1992. A lot easier to read. Output this one more time just to see what it looks like. Split the screen. And here, this time, our data is in a more readable form. And we could have even formatted this table initially to have it display a little better. There we go. Okay, so that's how you can connect to multiple data sources, either in SQL, XML, and how you can connect to them both within a table. See the time. Sorry, I'm running a little behind here. I'm trying to get through these last couple parts. I'd like to, these next couple of sections will help you display more of the data that you want us to display. Right now, we are just getting everything within the table. But what happens if you want to just display specific things from within each of these tables? Let me show you how that can be done. So to provide filtering before you generate the output, you can do this. Oh, I was going to say no to that because I moved the columns. So if you want to provide filtering before you generate output, you can do this using input parameters. So in the AutoTag tab over here in the data section, I'm going to go ahead and select input parameters. So here's where I can define parameters. I'm going to add a parameter here, and let's give it a name. Let's call it category. All right. We can give it this parameter a default. Categories. A category I saw was beverages. So let's go ahead and assign beverages as the default. You can also assign a type to the input parameters. You can have it be currency, date, integer, number, text, or select. Select gives you an AutoTag drop-down list to choose the value you want. Today, for this example, we're going to go with text. So I'm going to select text. Okay, now that I have the default, I'm going to make it required. I'm going to save this parameter. And now that I have created the input parameter, how do I utilize it to filter out the data? So back up here in the categories table, I'm going to select this categories ForEach tag. And then up here in the tag properties, you'll see this wizard button. So I'm going to go ahead and select this, and this will open up our SQL wizard. Let's expand this just a little. And over here on the left side are all the tables and views that I have access to. In this center section, here's a list of all the columns. This is the data we're gathering: category ID, category name, description, and picture. So what happens if I want to sort by a category name? How do I do that? So in order to do that, I would come over here to the tables, the category tables, and as I want to sort by category name, I'm going to select it and drag it over here to the sort section. And when I do that, it will sort the category names in ascending order from A to Z. And over here on the right in the data tree pane, you can see the data that I'm returning. So here, category ID, category name, description, pictures, and it's being sorted by category name. It goes from beverages, condiments, confections, all the way up to seafood. If I want to sort this the opposite way, I'll go ahead and click on that and choose sort Z to A. And when I do that, you'll notice that this preview pane has changed, and now it's displaying the records descending order by category name: seafood, produce, meat, all the way down to beverages. Okay, so next thing we'd like to talk about is this filter section, or the SQL where clause. This is what we'll use to filter the data based on the input parameter that we created a little bit ago. So I'm going to go ahead and click on this, click here to add a group, and I'm going to add a filter. So we need to select how we want to filter by. So I'm going to go ahead and select the node, and I'm going to choose, we want to filter by category name, because as remember, we set up the input parameters for category name. So I'm going to go ahead and select that, click OK. So this category name is equal to, you could also change it as well. You could put not equal to, does not contain. We give you a couple of different options for comparison for filtering, but for this one, we're going to go ahead and choose equal to. And the value we want to make it equal to, I'm going to go ahead and click on this to set the value. And over here is this drop-down arrow. I'm going to go ahead and click on this. And these are all the parameters I can choose from. I've only set up one parameter, which is category. So right now, that's all I have. So I'm going to go ahead and double click that. And so you can see by default, because it had the default as beverages within the input parameter, I'm only displaying the categories that are beverages. Down here is where that where clause that I was just mentioning, the filter is set up, where we're filtering by category name that's equal to this input parameter. And here you also can see that there's the order by that we set up earlier. This is ordered by category name in descending order. And if I was to come up here and switch it to ascending, you'll see that it has changed. So this is set up dynamically for you as you are setting up through the SQL wizard. This is a good way to start to learn how to create select statements. We do it for you and we show you the result down here. You can't edit this. If you would like this, if you would want to edit this, you would have to use the tag editor. When you want to update this select statement, we show you how to update this through the intermediate training. But right now, just want to point out that the input parameter you can see right here by the dollar and this squiggly bracket. This is how we define variables that you want to reference within AutoTag. It's kind of cool. Teaches you a little bit of SQL statement syntax. So now I'm going to go ahead and click OK. Now what happens when I generate the output? Go ahead and generate it. And this time I have a nice variable prompt. So it's given us the default. Seafood was an option, so let's go ahead and change it just to see how it would display different. Now when I click OK, split the screen, and this time for this SQL table, all we are showing are those records that have a category name of seafood. All right, it's 9 o'clock. Sorry, I'm running a little late. I have one more thing I would really like to show you before we finish this up. If you have to leave, I understand, but I'll try to just go through this quickly just to make sure, get this in. So I just showed you how to filter based upon an input parameter. Now, what happens if you want to filter statically based upon some condition? Let's show you how to do that through this XML table. So I'm going to go ahead and select the ForEach tag. Come back up here to the wizard button. This time it opens up the XPath wizard, a little different as we're dealing with XPath. Earlier you saw SQL, but this is the XPath wizard. So at the bottom here, you'll notice that this is our XPath that we're generating dynamically, just like in the SQL wizard. So what happens if you want to sort? So let's go ahead and click on this click here to add an order by. This is how you would sort your XML data. So with that selected, I want to sort by first name. So I'm going to go in and select first name, click OK. And over here in the data preview, you'll notice that Andrew comes first, Ann comes second, Janet, Laura. And so we're sorting ascendingly by first name. If we wanted to change that, all we do is click on the ascending, choose descending, and this time you can see the names. Stephen is first, Robert, Nancy, and on down. So that's how you sort through the XPath wizard. But what happens if you want to filter statically? No matter how many times we output this XML data, we only want to see those employees who are within a specific country. So let's go ahead and click here to add a group, and let's go ahead and add a condition. So I'm going to select the node that I want the condition to apply to. And as we only want to display certain countries, I'm going to go ahead and select country. Again, we can have it equal to, not equal to, greater than, less than. We're going to keep it equal to, and then we're going to give it a value. This time we want to filter statically. So let's go ahead and type in a value. A country that I saw listed was UK. So let's go ahead and select that. So now we only want to display those records where the country, where those records where country equals UK. Go ahead and make this ascending again. And here's the syntax, the select statement that we set up, and even with the selecting only the UK countries. So I'll go click OK. Let's output this. Let's change this up. Let's this time go with produce. Click OK. All right, split the screen. And here this time, you'll see we're only displaying those records where the country is UK. All right, so that's how to filter statically and also dynamically. Statically by a defined value, dynamically using input parameters. Okay, I'm gonna minimize this, go back to the slides for a second. So we talked about the SQL and XML wizards, sorting by ascending and descending order. We use dynamic filters within SQL. Showed you the XPath query language, how to sort ascending or descending within the XML, and using static filters. Input parameters, again, allows you to add input just before generating output. We added a default value so that a value would be initially set. And we showed you how to reference that parameter in a tag, and then what it looked like when you were prompted for a value. All right, here are the resources that you can utilize. I'd suggest taking a screenshot of this while we are on this slide. Contains a lot of good information on contacting us. Here, wiki.windward.net. That's the URL if you want to access knowledge base. We're constantly updating the wiki. We're actually revamping it right now. So you'll probably see a new wiki coming out in a few months. This is where you can go to find information on different topics. But if you can't find what you're looking for, you can always feel free to reach out to our amazing support team here at support.windward.net, or you could email them at support@windward.net. If you need to have your keys retrieved, if your temporary keys and need to update to permanent or update to another version, you can access your keys at store.windward.net. And if you have any ideas on a feature or anything that you'd like to see changed within the product, you can submit that request to at our website at ideas.windward.net. All right, so we've reached the end. Next week, we'll be offering an intermediate webinar. We'll be going over advanced ForEach tags, if-else tags, switch tags. We'll show you conditional formatting, using functions or equations, importing within the template. So that'll be next week. For now, I'll go ahead and check on, see if there's any questions that were brought up, and answer those. I appreciate you guys hanging in there. Sorry I went over a little bit. Do have a question. Earlier you mentioned pods. Can you explain that a little further? Yeah, good question. Thank you. I was hoping I'd be able to get back to that. I wasn't as I went over, but pods are a great tool that we offer you. It's a really great way to set up your template in a quick and easy way. So pods are basically reusable codes. So say you're creating a template, and that template has the same header information in it that you use in all your templates. So instead of coming in here and creating, the tags, adding your images, put in the specific words you want here, to do this to every template that you start, we give you the ability to use pods. And what that can do is you could save the section of code that you like to reuse, whether it's a template or whether it's a data source, and you can save that off as a pod. So then when you go ahead and create a new document, all you would have to just do is access that pod, and you could place it into the template. When you place it in there, it gets placed with all your styles, everything that it's set up. Let's see if I can show you one quickly. I'm going to try to create a pod. Let's select this table. Let's select everything. Create a pod. Let's give it a name. Basic webinar. Can tell it where to place the file and give it a description. Okay, I'm going to save this one. Oh, this is where you want to save it. So I'm going to create a new one, and I want to save it here in my desktop. And when you do save a pod, the pod extension is RDLX. So let's call it Basic Webinar. Let's go ahead and save it. And let's go ahead and click OK. Let's open up the pod bin to show you what this looks like. And where did I save that? I'm not sure why I saved that for the minute, sorry. But here we can just show you that using these pods, you could just go ahead and then drag and drop. So say this pod was already set up. I'm just going to drag it into here. And that one didn't load anything. If I can load this one, sorry, just take a second. Yeah, I'm not sure why I'm not seeing that. I might not have set it up globally. But what pods do, again, it just allows you to set it to save portions of your template that you reuse over and over again and easily drag those into the template and have that portion set up without you needing to do it each and every time. Good question. Look, I think I see another question up here. Okay, got a couple of things coming through. Just give me a moment while I read a couple more of these. Oh, a lot of good questions about pods. Let's see some of them. Okay. Can pods have different security levels? So some could be locked from editing except for a certain group. I am not sure on that. I've never set up that. I can look that up for you and follow up with you on that. Yeah, sorry, I don't know the answer to that off the top of my head, and I'd like to give you something exact. I haven't seen security used on pods before, but I'll check and see if it's possible. And another question was, MS Word supports multiple headers and footers. Can you set up a pod for an odd page header, footer, and include some repeatable content to be placed in that footer as well as other footers? Say you want a QR code to be placed at the bottom left of each footer. of each page on it even? Can you do that? These are great questions, Kevin. I'm not sure about some of the answers to these. I'm going to have to follow up with you on this. Sorry, I just don't have the answer to that one, but I will follow up with you after this webinar on those questions. Good ones. Sorry. Well, that's the end of the webinar today. Sorry I wasn't able to answer those questions. I will come up with some answers for you and reach out to you with those. Well, I hope everyone has got some things out of this. There will be a feedback survey at the end of this. Please feel free to fill it out truthfully. Any feedback that you can provide will help me and the attendees for the next webinar. So thank you for joining. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and goodbye now.